Maneco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. So I've decided to do a live stream, mostly because I got comments um, from a lot of my viewers today, my video today, that Danielle DiMartino Booth did an interview with Greg Hunter, and she actually said that the Fed is works for the American people, and I was shocked by that. Not surprised though. Danielle DiMartino Booth, I think she's a controlled opposition. She did write a book criticizing the Fed, but she doesn't believe in abolishing or ending the Fed. She believes that the United States does need a central bank, and in my opinion, that's flawed. So I've got my End the Fed T-shirt here today. You can also get End the Fed T-shirts at my Teespring store, and the link to that store will be in the description of this recorded live stream later on. Who is in bed with the Fed? Yeah, it looks like she is. She was an assistant to the president of the Dallas Fed, Richard Fisher, for a few years. And yeah, dude, you're the best. The Fed is evil. I agree. I was looking, at some numbers. Well, first of all, if the Fed, let's go back in history and look at the. Yeah, she hasn't seen the creature from Jekyll Island. There you go, G. Edward Griffin. But I actually think that the best book for the Fed is by Eustace Mullins, The Secrets of the Federal Reserve. And this book was written way before The Creature from Jekyll Island. Both of them are very good, and I recommend them. Eustace Mullins and G. Edward Griffin. She needs to do a bit of reading, I think, Miss DiMartino Booth. And there is, of course, the book by Ron Paul, End the Fed, which I recommend as well. So yeah, one thing I would say is if you look back, let's say in 1933, when the U.S. banking system was collapsing, who was the institution that actually helped FDR confiscate the gold of the American people? Well, it was the Federal Reserve banks, all the regional Federal Reserve banks. There's 12 of them. All of them helped confiscate the American public's money. So how can this central bank be a friend of the people? Well, in 2008, did the Federal Reserve bail out people who own homes and lost their homes? No, they bailed out the banks. So maybe Greg Hunter should have asked her that. If the Fed was really there for the people, they wouldn't have done that. Plus, I don't think the American people need a central bank to bail them out. I think the market does that itself, the free market. The Constitution, clearly states that only, here, let's see, the Constitution says that no state shall make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payments of debt. Also says, Article 1, Section 8, the U.S. Constitution, Congress shall have the power to coin money and regulate the value thereof and of foreign coin. So that's it doesn't say anything about a central bank. We all know that the Federal Reserve Act, the 16th Amendment, was passed on Christmas Eve in 1913, when most of the people who were going to vote against it had gone home for Christmas already. It was a complete farce. Even Woodrow Wilson, he said, President Wilson, after breaking with the engineers of the Federal Reserve Act and near his death, this is what he said: "I am a most unhappy man. Unwittingly, I have ruined my country." That's what Woodrow Wilson said back then. Kevin Johnson, if John Lennon was alive, he would be pushing SJW politics. Well, I'm focusing on the Fed here. The most important thing, I think, in my opinion, is the money and the the kind of money that we use. Right now, we don't have real money. We have fraudulent credit and fiat credits, or I don't even like to call it money. Yeah, Billy is here today. He wasn't here this morning when I made my video. Yesterday, I didn't make a video yesterday on Saturday, mainly because I had like a Christmas golf due at my golf club. So we played in the morning. We had lunch later on. It was really cold, but it's nice to get out and play golf and exercise. David Morsilli is here. Hi, David. Yeah, well, the money now is debt, but it's not real money. Real money is a commodity that has intrinsic value. It's the most marketable commodity. Right now, it's a farce, really. And that's what Danielle DiMartino Booth doesn't go into. She even says that the Fed, she said the Fed maintains the purchasing power of the dollar. We all know what's been happening to the dollar since 1913. It's lost about 97% of its value. And I've looked at, I think the Fed is the people's bank, but not in a good way. What the Fed does, it indebts the people. And the Fed is not independent. All this talk about that the Fed is independent. No, the Fed needed Congress and the politicians to create it. And I think maybe the Board of Governors in Washington, D.C., maybe they're more, they're not like a corporation, but all the Federal Reserve regional banks, New York Fed, Dallas Fed, San Francisco Fed, Atlanta Fed, they're all corporations. They don't even have .gov on their websites. If they were really government owned, they would be NewYorkFed.gov, but they've got .org. And I would say all the major corporations, especially banking corporations, are the major controllers of those regional banks. And don't forget, the New York Fed, up until the mid-30s, controlled the whole system, the New York Fed. So the other thing I've looked here, I mean, anyone can look at this. I've looked at the Treasury, the national debt in 1913 was $2.9 billion. And if you use the inflation calculator, that would be the equivalent of $74 billion today. The population of the U.S. then was roughly 100 million. So now it's 350 million. So if you allow for population growth, the national debt really should be around 260 billion, but we are almost at 22 trillion. And who's helped this debt grow? Well, it's the Federal Reserve System. So yeah, I did watch the video. I've got it here. I did give it a thumbs down, and I see that up until I watched, it had 1.6 thousand thumbs up and 501 thumbs down. So, I mean, I'm not sure Greg Hunter, well, it's not for me to tell him what to do, but I personally wouldn't have her back in my show. I mean, the book she wrote, Fed Up, I'm not going to waste my money buying that because it's controlled opposition. That's all she is. So we got a few people here on the live stream, 84 people. Yes, Chad Michael says this is the main culprit of most of our issues in the world. I agree, the money is, because money is the most, in a indirect exchange economy, modern, specialized economy like Greenspan talks about in his golden economic freedom. You need the money to be sound. You need it to be honest. or else you disrupt the whole system. And that's what we're going to get. It's not the economy that collapses, that will collapse. It's the monetary system that will collapse, but the economy won't be able to function because of that. And that's all because of the Federal Reserve and the politicians in Washington. Well, if the Fed was really independent, not political, and for the people in '08, they should have let all the banks collapse, and they should have paid everyone's mortgage off. And they should have, maybe created new banks, after J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Citibank. After all those banks had gone bust, which they should have done, that's what the Fed should have done. If the Fed was really a bank of the people, by the people, for the people, right? I don't like to say the word, and I won't say it, but she's full of what. Danielle DiMartino Booth. If she really believed in freedom, free market, rule of law, why would you want a central bank? It's one of the planks of the Communist Manifesto, one of the 9 or 10 planks, I'm not sure how many, is centralized credit, public education as well as one of them, government-run education. And I'm sorry, Danielle DiMartino Booth is not a friend of the alternative, the libertarians like us, the people who want rule of law, small government, and hopefully Greg Hunter won't have her again on. Pat asked, what do you expect from the Fed raising rates this week? I'm sure they will raise rates, but what will gold to? I think gold will go down to flat. What do you mean by flat? Flat in relation to what? But the Fed will definitely raise rates. I think it's on the 19th. It's a 2-day meeting. It's already priced in. I have been looking at the commitment of traders reports, and the commercials, unfortunately, are increasing their shorts in gold and silver. So yeah, gold and silver could be hit in this next week, but we'll have to see. Longer term, of course, if we really want to fight the bankers and the central banks, we need to we need to get out of their system, their phony, fraudulent credit system. I don't even like to say it money anymore, because as O.C. Shore, one of the viewers, always reminds me, what we have is not money, it's fraudulent. Yeah, it's just a fiat credit, and we don't even have capital. I remember during the '08 '09 crisis, well, just during the crisis, and when Hank Paulson, the Treasury Secretary, was begging for bailouts, you say, "Oh, we have to provide the system with credit." And I thought, what credit is or capital? Well, it's not real money, really. It's just, and I would say that some people will argue that 97% of the capital that they say the system supposedly has is not real capital. It's not worked for. It's created out of thin air by the Federal Reserve. Yeah, I think usually the precious metals come under a little bit of pressure during Fed meetings, but afterwards, they actually rally. I remember when the Fed started raising rates, December 2015. That's when gold bottomed. But up until the meeting, gold was having a tough time, and then it bottomed, and then it went up after that. So it might be negative this week, or unchanged, or flat, as you say. But in the medium to longer term, it should be fine. But yeah, as I said, of course, we are, how can I say, hostage or victims to following the price of gold in Federal Reserve notes. I wouldn't even say that the price is in dollars, because a dollar is a weight of silver, right? So all of it has been perverted. Hey, Blanco Derm, nice to see you here as well. Yeah, I mean, if you can't afford to buy an ounce, like James Ponder is saying, buy a gram. Um, let's see how much a gram of gold is. So 12, let's say 1250 divided by 31.10. What's about $40 per gram, the price of gold right now. He's saying about 50. I think that's a big premium for a gram, 50. I would say it would be more like maybe 42 or 43 would be reasonable. I wouldn't pay more than that. What do you think, Billy? Billy, what do you think about buying grams of gold? Well, he thinks it's okay. Billy is a silver bug, but he likes gold as well. Uh, Lord Humongous Yellow Vest, the central bankers, vive la freedom. Yeah, gold is money, everything else is credit. Yeah, that was JP Morgan. Silver certificates again, I agree. But make sure they don't, you know, uh, how can I say, renege on the certificates. They should be able to always be payable in silver. If I took my old silver certificates to the treasury now, they wouldn't give me an ounce of silver for, you know, a silver dollar for $1. So yeah, James the Ponderer. I guess the way to always keep track of your reserves of precious metals is by ounces or grams or tons. Not that I have tons, of course, but that's how central banks do it, right? Libertarian forever, what percentage of your net worth should be in gold? Well, whatever percentage you want to save. You know, I'm not the one who decides how much you should save, but you know, have some. It's up to each individual and their circumstances. I can't tell you exactly. You have to decide that for yourself. Dax postage on a ton of gold is prohibitive. Lord Humongous, they could print bills out of gold and silver. Yeah, I think there's a Swiss company that does that. It has a film, you know, like gold wire. You could do that. Gold is very malleable. It would be easy to do. Old Pa Sync wire premiums or premia going up as prices go down. Simple greed. No, it's not simple greed. It's because the paper price has been manipulated lower by the bankers, so it doesn't reflect the real supply and demand dynamics in the market. And so I don't think it's greed because dealers want to do as much business as possible, but they need to keep, if they have too low a premium, they won't be able to buy and sell. They need to have inventory. That it just goes to show that the market is tight and the price is phony. I mean, I think when gold bottom in '08 below $700, you could almost not find any physical gold. The premium was like 10-20% for gold. Olaf Nielsen, housing land hair. Uh, I mean, hair, I guess, means hair. Housing land, is that somewhere in Scandinavia? I don't know what that means. Who saw the latest Greg Hunter video? The fed up author has been compromised, bought and paid for. Yeah, this is what I've been talking about. Litigo 66. This is why I've started this live streams, because some people made me aware this morning through their comments in my video that I made this morning that he interviewed Danielle DiMartino Booth, and she actually said that the Fed is the people's bank, which is complete rubbish, of course. And Greg Hunter, I put a thumbs down on the video. He got 500 thumbs down and 1,600 thumbs up. So yeah, she's controlled opposition, this woman, Danielle DiMartino Booth, and she worked for the Fed, of course, the Dallas Federal Reserve Bank. Oh, Herr is here. He means he's from Hälsingland in Sweden. Okay. Hi, S. Walker, one of the mediators. Yeah, it was a terrible interview, Paul Anders. I mean, she even said that the Federal Reserve maintains the purchasing power of the dollar, which is a complete joke. We know that the dollar's lost 93% of it, or 97% of its value since the Federal Reserve Act was passed in 1913. I was talking earlier in the live stream, if you look at the national debt of the United States in 1913, it was $2.9 billion. If you translate that into 2018 dollars, it's about 74 billion. And then if you multiply that by 3.5, which is the increase in the population since then, you get around $260 billion in debt. Well, is the debt $260 billion now? No, it's 22 trillion. And which institution has made it possible for the government to accumulate all this debt, especially in the last 10 years through QE? Well, it's been the Federal Reserve. So, yeah, it's very easy to, how can I say, prove her wrong, this woman. And she's just, you know, controlled opposition. Hopefully Greg Hunter will not bring her back again to interview her. But I guess at least we know who she's really for. She's not for the American people. The other thing I said in 08 when everything collapsed, why didn't they bail out, the homeowners, like made them whole, let them keep their homes and pay off their mortgages? No, millions of people were out in the street, and the bankers got bailed out and became even richer. And who made that possible? Through their money creation out of thin air, or credit creation out of thin air. It was the Federal Reserve. The only thing the Fed really uses the American people for is to issue their debt on their backs to help the bankers. That's all it is. And I've also, of course, recommended a few books. I think one of the best is The Secrets of the Federal Reserve by Eustace Mullins. And this one came out way before The Creature from Jekyll Island, which I also recommend, by G. Edward Griffin. And of course, I also recommend End the Fed by Ron Paul. It was during the 2008 election or 12, I forget now. Ron Paul was doing really well. People were chanting End the Fed. And to be honest, I'm not sure there is anyone like Ron Paul that would become president and really do things to help the general public. I'm not too sure about the current incumbent of the the White House. Yeah, Billy is awake. Hey, Billy, say hi to everyone. He's got his bow tie today. Kevin Johnson. Yeah, S. Walker says I was watching The Big Short. I've watched it a few times. It's a good movie. Bitcoin is just a test. Kevin, if you had to guess the weight in silver and gold, someone would need to be first world rich after the collapse. What would that weight be? Um, hmm, uh, yeah, I think 100 ounces of gold would be very good to have, and silver maybe 1,000 ounces. That's what I would think that you would be comfortable. I'm not saying you would be, you would be comfortable. You'd be better off than I think the the vast majority of people. And many people think that in the next crisis, and it will come, it's just a matter of when, even the very wealthy, the 1%, they will lose everything. It will be a massive, wipeout. And that's why you need to have precious metals and tangible assets. And some people even argue you should be prepared with food and water. That's not a bad idea either, even though I don't specialize in that. Diamonds, the problem with diamonds I have is, they're not very homogeneous. Like they're not like a commodity like gold and silver, and you can get ripped off quite easily by the dealers. And yeah, you know, if you do have extra spare cash and you want to buy your wife a nice ring or earring, that's fine. But it's not the best place to preserve, in my opinion, your wealth. TV is a waste of energy. Yeah, I don't watch TV anymore. I don't watch the mainstream news anymore. The only time I see clips of the mainstream news is on the internet, on YouTube or other sites. I don't read to. I don't buy any more newspapers. The only thing I'm subscribing to now is The Economist. I know they're a globalist magazine, but I think it's good to know sometimes what the enemy is doing, and I think that magazine is worth having in that sense. Charles Kitch. Yeah, this is why I made this live stream, Charles, because I did watch that ridiculous interview where this woman, DiMartino Booth, said the Fed is the people's bank and that the Fed helps maintain the purchasing power of the dollar. We don't even use a dollar anymore. The US doesn't use a dollar, it uses Federal Reserve notes. The Federal Reserve note uses the term dollar, but that's completely fraudulent because according to the Constitution, the dollar is a weight in silver, right? Yeah, I don't watch TV, $5 penny, so I don't pay the TV license, it's called. I saw a headline in one of the papers today. I went out in the shop and they had the Daily Mail or Mail on Sunday, and they said that the BBC have given their staff, the big directors, like a 30% pay rise. That's the sheeple public, that pay their TV license. They're financing that. S. Walker, I think the rate hike in January is priced in. Sorry, in December this week. It's on the 19th. I think they will definitely raise rates, and they're going to raise rates again. Next early next year. I think it will be in March. I'm not sure when because not at every meeting do they raise rates. They use usually the meetings where you have a 2-day meeting. So, and I think they're going to continue to raise rates, uh, unless, of course, everything implodes, the market collapses, and then they will change their mind probably. Chad Michael Harding. I see Maduro on TV telling his people to save gold, blaming the US for ruining them. Well, I agree with him about saving gold. I don't know about the rest. Vance, will you be an enemy of the state if you hold medals? Well, you are an enemy of the, I would say that the shadow government, the deep state, you are an enemy of those institutions. You're an enemy of the bankers who control the state as well. So yes, you are, because you're not helping finance, you're not helping their system of ever increasing debt. They want people to spend and be, indebted in credit creation, because it's the fiat paper system. That's what it's about. It's not about growth, work, wealth preservation, savings, all the right things that people should do. Our system is completely turned upside down. And that's why, I'm not too sure about the guy in the White House, because, he seems to want the Fed to keep rates low so people can get more and more into debt. He wants the OPEC countries to keep oil prices low so people can spend more. Maybe it's a good thing that things get, people have to go without sometimes. Things. I'm not saying that it's good to go without, but uh, things go up and down in cycles. We can't just have highs and highs and highs. It's like we don't just have daylight. We have night and day. So yeah, the system is not sustainable. Yeah. Yeah, the yield curve is almost inverting. I think it's kind of flat at the moment, twos to fives. Vance says he's buying time. Buying time for what, Vance? All the people I see getting arrested now are people that work for him. Why isn't Hillary Clinton in jail? Anyway, we're talking about the Fed. Yeah, it would be nice if Trump came out and said, I want Congress to, abolish the Federal Reserve. We want to repeal the Federal Reserve Act. It would be a start if he did that. But all I hear him is he kind of legitimizes the Fed, because he says the Fed should be doing this and this. What he should be doing is that we don't need a Fed. In a small government, free market, free country, with the rule of law, you don't need a central bank. Why don't we have a central bread company? We don't have a central shoe making company. Only in China, I guess, governments get involved with these big industries, but we do the same. The Federal Reserve is a fascist institution. So, and the bread. That's right. Uh, Drupka Kunli, you said you don't specialize in that. Then what are your suggestions? Specialize in what, Drupka? I didn't see your. Let's see. You said you don't specialize in that. I don't know what you're talking about, so you got to be more clear about it. I don't remember what that is in reference to. Lord Humongous, I agree with you. We don't need a central bank. This End the Fed T-shirt, I bought that years ago. But if you do want to buy an End the Fed T-shirt, I do have a Teespring store, Maneco 64 store. I've got End the Fed T-shirts and the Fed mugs, Billy mugs, and the link to that store is in the description of all my videos, if you want to have a look. Derek McCrae, throw a dart at the top 20 cryptos, you'll win. Lord Humongous, hodl to zero. Yeah, at least cryptocurrencies are not forced on people. They're actually market developments, free market developments. People are free to, put their wealth, some of their wealth into it. That's what's so great about it, and that's why the mainstream hates it, hates cryptocurrencies. What to store in the coming financial crisis? Kunli. Well, in terms monetarily, I guess gold and silver. For I guess from what I hear, some preppers, they talk about water, baked beans, spam, whatever you think is you can get a hold of, and you think is I think is if you I think John X Army, he's got a big YouTube channel. He talks a lot about that, so I recommend him. Sometimes it can get a little bit too doom and gloom, in my opinion, but it's better to be prepared than not. Even if nothing happens, you can still eat your baked beans. Randall McMurphy, the US dollar is backed by gold. Really? I didn't know that. Do any of you other people know that the dollar is backed by gold? Wow. I think did you just wake up, Randall? Have you been asleep since 1933, Randall McMurphy? The dollar is not backed by gold. We don't have a dollar. We have a Federal Reserve note, and it's backed by debt. It's backed by your taxes that you pay, your effort. So, Randall, I'm sorry to blow your bubble. Are you sure your name is not Randall Van Rip Van Winkle? You went to sleep in 1933 and you woken up and you think the dollar is backed by gold. Anyway. I guess Randall was having, just trying it on and just joking with me. Matteo Di Fiore has 0.0003 of a ton of gold. All right. It's better than 0 of a ton. Alexander Setchik, Trump will end the Fed. He will rename it. Why do you need to rename it? If you end it, you don't need to rename it. That's right, Lord Jimenez. We don't have a dollar now. We have Federal Reserve notes, which say they have, with a dollar written on it, but it's fraudulent. They're fraudulent notes. So is the Bank of England note. It says £5, but it's not £5, of silver, or not even 5 gold sovereigns, right? And even that was kind of fraudulent, changing from a pound of silver to 1 sovereign. David Morsilli, IMF will be new global central bank. I hope not, David. I hope the whole thing, goes to, to the tank. I wouldn't want to see the Fed ending and then seeing the IMF coming up. I mean, that would be, you could be right, but I hope not. But, we can wish for all these things, but we can also fight against it, and in a constructive way, by knowing about the system and knowing what money really is and protecting ourselves and not playing their game. And by not playing their game, I mean by not, buying things we don't need, taking on credit. Because if you think about it, someone might say, oh, interest rates are really low right now, mortgage rate 5% or whatever. But if you know how the banks create these loans, for every dollar they have in deposit, they'll create they'll create 9 or even more dollars. So you could argue that the 5% that they make when they lend to you is actually more like 50%. So yeah, it's a parasitical system, and it sucks the wealth out of everyone. How does that do? They do that? Well, because they're able to create it from nothing, and you have to actually earn your wealth, do work for that. The bankers don't have to do. Well, they do go to the office, but there's no effort. Charles Kitch, yeah, 15% in 81. But I would argue, Charles, because the banks are so leveraged now that actually 5%, uh, yeah, it's low for you. But for the banks, it's more like they're making 50% because they're lending stuff that they don't have. Italy pays $10 a gallon for gas. Yeah, I mean, in the UK, it's quite expensive. I think a gallon here is it a pound 40, or is that the liter? Yeah, that's. I'm not sure how many gallons to the liter. Let's see. Uh, Gallons, liters. So 1 gallon is 3.7 liters. So we pay a pound 30 times almost four. We pay about $4 50 per gallon in the UK. So in Italy, it's a lot more than in the UK. Yeah, in the UK, diesel is about almost 1 pound 40 per liter. So this live stream, I started doing it because some people made me aware of this interview Greg Hunter did with Danielle DiMartino Booth, who was like an assistant to the president of the Dallas Federal Reserve. In this interview, you can watch his latest interview on USA Watchdog or Greg Hunter YouTube. She says that the Federal Reserve is the bank of the people, that we shouldn't. She says that we are all conspiracy theorists who think the bankers own the Fed. And then she actually admits that the bankers control and run the Fed. So, yeah, it's quite amazing. Sanjit Nyogi, hi Sanjit. So, yeah, and the other thing I've looked at is if you look at what the Fed allows the system to do, and it helps the bankers and it helps politicians. And how do they do that? Well, they become like a lender of last resort that can create the Federal Reserve credit out of thin air, right? I think a week or two ago, someone mentioned that the Federal Reserve net value is going negative 60 billion negative, but it doesn't matter to them. So they allow all the debt to be created because they backstop, the politicians and the bankers. And why do the bankers and the politicians love the Fed? Well, the bankers, because the more debt there is, the more fees they make, and the politicians, the more debt there is, that means the more votes they can buy, the more money, the more projects they can do, and the more control they can have of the population. So I looked at the national debt in 1913, which was the year the Fed was created, and it was $2.9 billion. And then I looked at the US inflation calculator, and $2.9 billion in today's money would be about 74 billion. Then I multiply that by 3.5 times, which is what the population has grown since 1913, and the debt would be 260 billion. But no, the debt is 22 trillion. So how can the Fed be the people's bank and the friend of the American public, or for that matter, any central bank anywhere in the world? They're not the friend of the people. This is what people need to learn. They're the friends of the politicians and the bankers. So there you go. Lord Humongous, she's probably related to John Wilkes Booth. Yeah, the guy who shot Lincoln. He was an English actor, wasn't he? Yeah, guess who John Wilkes Booth is related to? The wife of Tony Blair, Sherry Blair. Her maiden name is Booth, and her father was an actor. So yeah, that there you go. Yeah, DiMartino Booth is like a yeah, I really hope Greg Hunter never brings her on again because she's controlled opposition, and we don't need people like her. But at least we know now. You know, I never really thought much of her, but today's interview is really quite amazing. I think it just goes to show, uh, who she bats for, so to speak. Live chat currently 195. If we all go to Amazon and give her book a bad review, yeah, well, yeah, that would be interesting. I'm not recommending people do that. I'd rather you give me a super chat donation and help my channel keep running. That's what so I can keep exposing the fraudulent system. I know it's Federal Reserve notes that you'd give me through the super chat, but I'll try to exchange that as much as possible to sound money. Alex, this is what I've been talking most of the last 47 minutes about Greg Hunter's interview with Danielle DiMartino Booth. It isn't owned by the people, and I have I've just said that a minute ago. You must have just come on. She's full of it, of course. If it was owned by the people, the Fed would have bailed out the people in '08, not the banks, right? The Fed wouldn't have helped FDR confiscate the public's gold in 1933. They would have told the president, no, that's the public's gold. We're the people's bank. So it's complete rubbish, of course. I don't think Ron Paul will ever run again. You know, he's, I think he's 82. So he's a bit old for that, I think. He looks very fit. I agree, but I just don't think you know campaigning takes a lot out of you. I think. Lord Humongous, the interview was published yesterday on Greg Hunter's YouTube channel. Canada 2016, did Hitler actually arrest a Rothschild? I don't know. I don't know about that. I haven't looked into that. So yeah, so it's what 8:22 p.m. here in London. The markets will be opening at they open at 11. The futures market. So we'll be able to see what's gonna happen. How the week is gonna start. Lord Humongous says he did arrest a Rothschild bank and seized their gold. Okay. All right. So to sum up, what I spoke about in the live stream, well, actually, corporate restructure of Fed. No, the Fed needs to be abolished. We don't, in a free market economy with small government and the rule of law, why do you need a central bank? Let the market do things. DiMartino Booth says, "Oh, the Fed is, the Fed needs to be there to make sure everything's stable in the banking system." But it's been around for 100 years, the Fed, and we still have all these major crises where the system almost collapses. So what kind of job is the Fed really doing? They're not really doing that. And before the Fed was created, you had crises. Yes, you did. But they weren't existential crises for the financial markets, right? So, yeah. And Mr. B says, smash the like button. That's right. QAnon says gold destroys the Feds. Your idea on Q. I don't believe this Q thing. I'm sorry. I don't follow it. I think it's a distraction. I'm not sure. Big Swear seems to think that means that there are millions of tons in the, Grand Canyon. He's making huge assumptions here. First, he's assuming that this Q thing is for real, and then he's assuming that Q knows about the gold in the supposed gold in the Grand Canyon. So I would, ignore that and don't waste your energy on this Q guy, in my opinion. The Fed doesn't need to be restructured. If Q was a real patriot, he'd say the Fed needs to be abolished. We don't need a Fed. We don't need a central bank. There you go. And the reason why I made this video about the Fed, that the Fed's not your friend and never will be, is because it's controlled by the bankers, controlled by people that pay Danielle DiMartino Booth. Danielle DiMartino Booth is probably looking to get a job at the Fed eventually, and that's why she does criticize the Fed, but it's just helpful criticism, while she should actually be calling for the Fed to be abolished. So there you have it. If you enjoyed this live stream and you're not a subscriber yet to the channel, make sure you subscribe. If you like to help the channel, look at the links in the description of my videos. You can become a Patreon supporter. You can become a PayPal supporter. You can buy some of my End of Fed t-shirts in the Maneco 64 store. They're not as same as this one, but they are End of Fed t-shirts. I've got End of Fed mugs as well. So I wish everyone a great rest of this Sunday. Here in the UK, it's late in the evening already. But yeah, and I'll talk to you later next week. And take care. And thanks for being on the live stream, everyone. Bye.